Welcome to Super Woo Radio, where we are awakening into being free and sovereign. It's a place where minds hurt and hearts sing as we break through the barriers that have been holding us back. Be prepared to have belief systems confronted as we take the journey of the truth seeker for answers to life's biggest questions. Remember, truth is stranger than fiction, so come along for an awareness expanding experience with George and his amazing guest. Here on Super Woo Radio.
Hello and welcome, magnificent Earth humans and all you other wonderful beings throughout the universe, listening to our multidimensional broadcast here on Super Woo Radio, episode number 30. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you who have supported Super Woo Radio over the years. And a special mention goes to those of you that have and are purchasing the MP3. And for those who have not, please consider, as you get to choose the amount that you consider a fair exchange. Because with your support, Super Woo Radio can continue to bring you knowledge and wisdom in a unique way that helps you break free from all the programs that are holding you back, so you may achieve empowerment from within and consequently changing your life for the better. It is with great pleasure to announce in this episode we have with us Rey Hernandez. Rey, affectionately known as Rey, is an estate tax attorney with the IRS. He was previously the director for the Center for a Sustainable Urban Environment at the City University of New York and the director of the Office of Community Environmental Planning for the City of New York. He has attended Rutgers College, Cornell University, and UC Berkeley for the PhD program in City and Regional Planning. He was also the recipient of the National Science Foundation PhD Fellowship. Rey currently resides in Miami, Florida. Rey is now a contactee. So sit back, make yourself at home, and get ready for one of the most intriguing conversations that you are ever likely to hear. Rey Hernandez, welcome to Super Woo Radio.
Thank you so much, George. That was an excellent pronunciation.
Wasn't
Gonna have to bring it to Miami. You know?
Wasn't that difficult after all, was it?
No, not at all. You were perfectly fit in here.
Well, yeah, having an ethnic background myself and being bilingual myself, it helps when you understand how to cross-express through different cultures. Now, Rey, I want to express my gratitude for you coming on to Super Woo Radio, for us to have this discussion. You are the founder of something really quite extraordinary. You've gotten together with an amazing lady called Mary Rodwell, and you've created this foundation. And I feel it is a very, very important foundation. And I'm really excited about our discussion because I feel it can go into many different areas and we have lots to share. And there is quite a presence around us. And I've been in contact with certain interdimensional extraterrestrial races prior to our conversation, which is very exciting. There's a lot of love and support for our conversation today. So, Ray, take it away and please share with us everything that you would like to share with the wider community.
Thank you, George. And I appreciate the time and the love that you put into this project. We've had a very lovely conversation about a week
Yes.
ago, and then just the last couple of minutes. But F.R.E.E was actually formed by three individuals. One of them was myself. The other one is Mary Rodwell, who basically is sort of like my god mum, as you
Yeah.
guys say, and also Christina Knowles, who is an experiencer, and she was the only person that I could speak to about these experiences for a very long time. Um, and so the three of us formed an organization, which Mary termed. She was the one that came up with the name. It's F.R.E.E, F.R.E.E, which stands for Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. And it's in the details. We'll talk a little bit more about it and how it was formed. But you know a little bit about my background. But up until about 2 years ago, I was your typical overeducated atheist material rationalist. Um, and then the big stuff actually happened only about 1 year ago. And so everyone is deeply shocked how much I've been able to digest all of this information and to be where I'm at. Uh, but it's I had a 3 month education period by benevolent higher intelligent non-human beings. And they were the ones that prepared me for it, and I'll go into those details. But basically, let me talk a little bit about my background. um, I was born in Cuba. I came here to the United States in 1961. I was 5 years old. Terrible in math, but I guess that makes me 57, close to
Yeah.
58. And I grew up in a neighborhood right on the uh, within 2 miles of
Wow.
Manhattan, in New York City. It was actually across the Hudson River, which separates New York State from New Jersey, another state. But in essence, it was like another neighborhood of Manhattan. It was a working class neighborhood. Both of my parents were factory workers, earning minimum wage in the United States. And I was a street kid, you know. Um, I hung out all the time out in the streets, doing sports and what a normal city kid would do. I was raised rough, you know, that's how I grew up. Um, but I was lucky that I was born with the abilities that I never studied until my last year of high school. I uh, I always did very well in school, even though I never did homework. I never studied, and I never gave a you know what about school. But you know, I was lucky that way. And I was only had always worked since I was 12 years old, because at that time I had asked my father, for a bike, because the previous one that I had rebuilt, someone stole it from me. And so he said, "You want a bike? Go work for
Yeah.
it." So at the age of 12 years old, I was out there, you know, selling
Wow.
newspapers. Um, and then at the age of like 14, I was working in different sweatshops, different factories in the
Wow.
neighborhood, you know, trying to hustle a little money, you know, for myself. And you know, my old man was a rough guy. You know, he was raised in the streets of Havana. You know, shoe shine. You know, when he was like, you know, 8 years old out in the street. So he says, you know, I'm going to raise you the same way. You know, Uh, and in hindsight, you know, it did make me very independent,
Yeah.
made me strong. Um, but the other part of me made me
Yeah.
rough, you know, which I
Yeah.
didn't like. And I had to deal with those rough qualities for many, many years. Um, and I'm still dealing with them because occasionally, you know, every 6 months I explode like a
Yeah.
volcano. And I'm 57 years old, you know, so I thought that part had been, dampened out many years ago. But, sometimes it occurs, that's because of, your youth, how you were raised, and there's certain things that you continue to purify and to try to cleanse out. But that rough neighborhood, man, it took a toll
Yeah,
on me.
sure.
So anyway, I was lucky enough. I got admitted into college, and for the first time in my life, I decided to study. And I did very well, and I got an academic scholarship to go to get a master's at an Ivy League school called Cornell University. And again, I did extremely well there. I got all A's there at the master's program, and I got a very prestigious PhD fellowship called from the National Science Foundation, which is pretty much paid for 3 years, everything, including a sizable amount of money to live off. And I went to University of California at Berkeley for my PhD. And so here I was. I had done all the coursework for my PhD. I was writing my dissertation. I was teaching and working at this prestigious university in Manhattan called the New School for Social Research. And my ex-wife got a brain aneurysm.
Wow.
And so what happened was that I had two little babies. Her sister was still in high school. Her mom had just retired, and my ex-wife was, you know, pretty much a vegetable for a while after she had the surgery. So I could never finish my
Mm.
dissertation, and so I was the sole breadwinner for several years until my ex-wife recuperated, and and I wound up looking at different types of managerial jobs for the city of New York and for the City University of New York. For about an 8-year period, I was in the environmental field. Um, I did a lot of innovative environmental projects for the
Yeah,
city of New York, which then the conservative Republican administration canned.
yeah,
And then I worked for the City University of New York, where Michio Kaku teaches, the well-known physicist. I was the director of an environmental program there called the Office of Environmental Community Environmental Programs. And again, I got a grant for them for the university, and I was implementing a lot of the programs that I was trying to administer when I worked for the
yeah.
city. And I was teaching part time, but I knew without a PhD that I couldn't go very far in academia. And so I went to law school while I was working full time, and then I became a lawyer. Um, for those lawyers that are out there, it's boring as hell. I don't like it at all, but it pays the bills. And so for the last 15 years, I've worked for the Department of Treasury, the IRS, Internal Revenue Service here in the United States, in Miami. And the good part about it is I get to work at home. I don't need
Yeah,
to commute. It's flexible hours because as long as I do my work, nobody bothers me. And I've gotten, very high
yes.
valuations since I first started. And so, in that sense, I'm glad that I did get this
That's
job.
fantastic. And you
And
can
so
see how
here,
the universe has conspired to allow you to have the free time to, you know, get involved in these other ventures.
most definitely. And before I never realized it, but now when you're putting all the pieces
Yeah,
together, I could have never done what I'm doing now without having that free
yes,
time
yes,
available. I wouldn't say free time because I'm still doing my work, but it gives me options to be able to do my
yes.
work. Instead of coming home very late at night and leaving very early in the morning, I don't have to deal with all that routine. So, well, so here I was, as I said earlier, an overeducated individual, totally atheist, okay, because my parents were not religious. Like a good Cuban, you were brought to get baptized, and then you had a communion, okay, and for me that was it. I was never even confirmed or nothing else.
Okay,
So here I was 2 years ago, um, when we had a 16-year-old dog, a Jack Russell Terrier, which was our first child. I called her because our daughter was born 6 years after we had our terrier. and we loved her to death. She was 16 years old, getting very old. Um, we were, spending a lot of money on medications trying to keep her alive. And then one Saturday evening at about 6 o'clock or so, she had a stroke where she became
Mm.
paralyzed. And then we picked her up, and she wasn't moving at all. A friend here, saw that, and tried to move her with my wife and myself, and so it was obvious that her time had come. We needed to bring her to the vet. So she didn't appear in distress, and it was Saturday night, and we said, okay, we'll wait till Monday. We'll bring her to our own vet, and we could have a little ceremony, a passing away ceremony, because she was a member of our family. And so what happened was the next day, Sunday morning, the dog woke up. She could still bark. She just couldn't move. And so my wife picked her up and saw that she was still paralyzed. She couldn't move at
Mm.
all. So my wife then carried her down the stairs. And when she got there, my wife saw, um, let me see, the best way to describe it is, if you can get a U, the letter
Yep.
U, you flip it upside
Yes.
down, and then where the neck is, you elongate it, and then but it was very large. It was like 2 feet wide by 3 feet in
Wow.
height, metallic color, and it had like these two green lights in the middle. And so my wife is from Mexico, and being a good Catholic that she is, she she knelt down and prayed, and she says, "If you're a bad demon, get the hell out. If you are an angel or the Virgin Mary, for the Mexicans, the
Yeah.
Virgin Mary is, very prominent. Please stay. And the only thing I ask is for you not to let my dog suffer." Okay. So when she finished having those thoughts, all of a sudden these two green lights shot out lasers towards her and the
Wow.
dog. And that's when my wife started freaking out, and she started yelling for me, Ray,
Oh my
Ray.
goodness.
And then at that point, I was like ignoring her. It's Sunday morning, it's 5:30 in the morning. And I was like, leave me alone. I want to sleep. I didn't sleep well last night. If it's a darn cockroach, just, do whatever you want with it. Don't bother me. And she kept on yelling and yelling and yelling. She did that for 10 or 15
Wow, it took you
minutes.
that long.
And I
It
was
took you
ignoring,
that long.
no, 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 no. I didn't want to go downstairs. I don't know why, but now I know why, because they had a little mission downstairs, and they didn't want me, in the
Yeah,
party
right. Yep.
with my
They
wife.
tend to do that. They
But
do
anyway,
they
my
do
wife,
tend to monitor everybody else in the surrounding area, even in the neighborhood, and they can control the way everybody
oh
is
yeah,
feeling
yeah,
about a
most
particular
definitely.
scenario.
Yeah, that's what happened to me, and I'll give you a very good illustration of how that
Yes.
was done. My wife went upstairs, and she physically hauled me
Wow.
downstairs, and I was like, you better be good. This better be good. What you're going to show me. And then when I got down to the bottom of the stairs, right about, I guess it would be in terms of yards, it would be maybe in terms of meters, might be 9 meters, 10 meters
Wow.
away, which is very close distance, was an energy being. Okay, it was roughly 2 feet wide, or a foot and a half wide, which is I guess half of a meter is roughly equivalent to a foot. So it would be
A meter is roughly equivalent to three. It's about a yard. It's close to a yard.
oh, I'm sorry, I got it mixed up. I told you I was telling math.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was about 2.5 feet to 3 feet. So it would be
Yep.
1 yard, which would be what,
Yes.
1 meter, right? Okay. Um, and in width and in height, a little bit shorter in
Yep.
height. If you could picture sort of like a rectangle type
Yep.
of shape, but it didn't have any external
Mm.
edges to it. It was wide open, and what it was pure
Yep.
energy, and it was multicolored, not like the rainbow where you have those distinct colors. It was all
Yes.
blending, like someone's pouring colored liquid in
Yes.
water, and then you shake it up, and all these colors are just meshing
Wow.
around. That was the appearance. And so this is what I did, which is not very logical. Okay, I looked at that entity there, and then I waved my hand at it, And I said to myself, bullshit.
Oh
And
my
then
goodness.
I turned around, I walked up the stairs, I went to my bed, I lied on my back, and I looked straight up at the ceiling with my hands folded at my chest. And I was sort of half conscious, you know, because you're not really thinking outwardly at that time. You just know that you're lying in the bed and you're chilling out, okay? In terms of estimates of time, it must have been about 10 or 15
Wow.
minutes. All of a sudden, I felt like the hypnotist said, okay, kid, snap the fingers, wake up. And all of a sudden, I woke up to the true reality. And I was like, holy shit, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
And I got up and I ran downstairs. And what I saw, my wife was like in Spanish. She was saying like, hallelujah, hallelujah, waving her hand and, all excited and jumping up and down. The angels cured her. The angels cured her. The angels cured her. And she was jumping and dancing, and the dog was jumping with her and dancing around with her, and the dog was like, like happy too, jumping and running around like with my wife, doing the same thing as my wife was doing,
Wow.
right? And I was like, what the hell just took place, and then I asked my wife, I said, what happened, and she says, the angels cured her. The angels cured her. And I said, well, what happened? She says, I'm telling you, the angels cured her. They came and they left. They fixed her up. And I'm like, that was no angel. Did you see that energy being, that pure plasma? She says, no, I didn't see that. What I saw was that metallic object. And so when I went downstairs, I didn't see my wife. It was like I had a
Yeah.
tunnel vision just on
Yeah.
that
Wow.
object. I had no peripheral vision,
Wow. Yeah.
around it. It was just towards that object. Like it was telling me, look at me, don't look anywhere else, you know? And so it definitely was
Mm.
controlling my mind. And for a very long time, I could never realize why I acted that way. It wasn't
Yeah.
logical. It wasn't me. I'm an inquisitive person. I want to find out what the hell's going on. Instead, I just behaved like a zombie, and I just went straight to bed, folded my hands, and I looked straight up at the ceiling. So anyway, after that, like any normal, rational person would do, in my situation, you start going to the internet, and all that did was just confuse me even more. I mean, they're devils, or they're gods, or they're this, or they're that, and like ancient aliens and reptilians, and I'm like, what the hell am I
Yeah.
getting into? Who's telling the truth? What's the reality
Yeah.
here?
Good.
And then I
Good
start,
question.
yeah, and I started, yeah, and I started ordering these UFO books, these standard UFO books, so I could learn a little bit about, at least in writing, what have been, Roswell, what's Roswell all about, and all that stuff. So in the meantime, my wife, on like 4 different occasions, she began seeing huge crabs. The first one was 2 months after that incident.
How long
Um,
ago was that
the
incident?
dog. Oh, the first initial incident in my house was late March 2012.
Wow.
So it was a little bit over 2 years ago.
So you would have been
Yeah,
right in the
yeah,
thick of the build
real
up to
quick.
2012 as well. I can imagine what would have been going through your mind in relation to that as well.
I don't know what the hell 2012 was. I didn't even understand it until December, I guess. What the hell that was about? But I had a very interesting 2012. Let me go through it. Roughly 2 months after that incident in May, or 3 months, whatever that was. It was mid-May at 3:30 in the morning. Our dog woke my wife up. Instead of going to the through the back door, for her to go to the bathroom, because we have a little doggy door, she wanted to go in the front door. And we live in a very quiet neighborhood with hardly no traffic. We have a no-through street, and it's a large cul-de-sac, so it's very quiet. So my wife opens the door, 3:30 in the morning, the front door, and so she goes down the stairs. We have little stairs there, and our lots are quite large, reasonable. Not your lots there in Australia, which are huge lots, but so what she saw, I mean, no, immediately what she felt was a noise. She said it was a deafening noise. She said it was like a 747 jet right on top of her. And subsequently, I read 2 email blogs that individuals described right before they were abducted, that they heard a 747 jet right
Isn't that
above them.
interesting?
And And also I read a book, which I have here. I forgot the name of the book, that someone said that exactly before they were abducted. It was like a 747 jet right above them, very, very loud. And so I asked my wife, I said, weren't the neighbors all up, because of that noise? She says, they should have been, because it was deafening noise. So how long did it last? About a minute. Then what happened? And then I looked up in the sky, and then I saw a huge ship. It was huge. And she described the distance of it. And it was only like 2 blocks away, but it was like the size of a football
My
stadium.
goodness, that is massive.
Not massive, and with bright multicolors at the edge of it. And in the morning she says, "Oh, I saw such a beautiful angelic craft last night. It had the colors just like a stained glass window in our church. Oh, it was so peaceful, so euphoric, so angelic." And I say, "What? You saw a football stadium sized UFO and you're calling it angelic?" She goes, "Ray, you have to understand, they're angels. They're angels." So that was the nature of our conversation. I was trying to prime her information, me being the with the rationalist scientific mind still, prying that type of information from her, but she just saw it as a as uh, as an angelic
Yeah,
experience,
because it's
as a
a lot of
pure, I
the
guess,
what
metaphysical
happens to
experience.
people in that moment, they just strip away pretty much every bit of their rational thinking, and they go straight back to their cultural programming and whatever mind control programs have been exposed to throughout their lives. They go straight back to that rigid programming system.
Yeah, yeah. And so me, I went back to my rigid programming system. Is like, something weird is happening, and I don't know what the hell is going on, but I'm not going to believe in this shit until I see it
Yep,
again.
yep, fair enough.
That was my mentality up
Yeah,
until then. So then in Mexico, my wife went to Mexico. She was there about a month and a half, and there she was on the rooftop of her sister's house, and she began to meditate and wanting to see that craft again. And it was nighttime, and it never did appear. So she went downstairs. It was like 10 o'clock at night. And then about an hour later on the 11 o'clock news, guess what? Her sister and her niece were calling her, to the TV. And they were like screaming and yelling. And she goes, wow, what happened? She says there was a UFO above Veracruz airport, which stopped all the planes for about an hour from like about
no
9 to
way.
10.
That's fantastic.
And they had reporters on the scene. They had interviews with tons of people. They even had videos. It was like extremely well documented. The newspapers had written articles about it. And so my wife didn't say anything at that point, to them, because she never told them about her experiences. So the next day was the baptism of her niece. And there they had a whole bunch of relatives from throughout Mexico came. This was in the city of Veracruz. And there was a fellow that was on the airplane that was invited to the party. He had come from Monterrey, which is one of the big cities in northern Mexico. And he showed folks there the picture that he took on his cell phone of the
Wow.
UFO. And it was purplish, bluish in color. And he talked about him seeing it, at
Yeah.
a distance. Um, and then a cousin of my wife, who she hadn't seen in 20 years, confided in her and said, "Look, I talk to these beings all the time since I was a little girl, and I see these ships all the time."
Wow.
And then my wife then confided in her, what had happened here in Miami, and also what happened the day before in terms of
Isn't
the
it
airport incident.
amazing?
That she was the one that
Isn't it
actually called it.
amazing just how many people have had these experiences in the
Oh,
world, and so it's so little talked about in our society?
I would say half of her
Oh my
family.
goodness.
Her mother, two sisters, and three nieces that I've been able to
Oh
verify so far.
wow.
So it's and not even including the niece. So anyway, they then said, okay, the next that night they were going to be departing to two different cities. My wife was going to be going to the capital of the state of Veracruz, called Jalapa, and that's pretty much in a mountainous area. And then the cousin was going to go down the coastline. So they said, okay, Dulce, let's do this little game. At 9 o'clock, we're going to call a craft. Okay. And then the next day we'll compare notes. Okay. And so what happened, they agreed, okay, 9 o'clock, we're going to call a craft. So then what happened was that my wife left in a 2-car caravan with her sister. And in the car, there were 2 attorneys, there were 3 dentists, and then there was an architect and the 2 nieces who were both teenagers. All of them saw this
Oh,
craft.
wow.
Okay. Not at 9 o'clock, but at 9:30. Okay. At 9:30, this craft descended, went in front of the lead car. They said it was very difficult to judge the distance, but they could clearly see the windows of the craft and the colors. It was bluish, purplish in color. It beamed down a blue light right in front of the lead car for like a minute or two, and all of a sudden it took off.
Now, were they able to see into the craft through windows or anything like that?
No, they just saw that it had windows across
Sure.
the craft. And now, in terms of seeing that blue beam, half of them remember the blue beam. The other half said they don't remember a blue beam. So I guess it's normal to have these type of
They
discrepancies.
do, because they can screen out what
or
one
maybe
person sees. I mean, you could have a crowd of 100 people and a ship can turn up and only 2 of the people looking in the same direction in the sky will see a particular craft. Or it's just like your own personal experience. You were basically controlled to see something and your wife was controlled to see something else.
Yeah. But at least it was. I was able to confirm it when I was in Mexico this winter, what they had seen, and that's when I actually finally asked many of her relatives. And man, her mom is like Miss Contactee herself, my wife's
Oh, wow,
mother.
really?
And that's when I finally started putting the pieces
Yeah, it's the
together. Here's a
matriarchal
woman
bloodline
who's
because the mitochondrial DNA comes
yeah,
down through the woman, through the mothers giving birth.
through
Yeah.
the mom. So the mom, basically, here you have a hardcore Catholic,
Yes.
living in Mexico, right? Going to church, very, very frequently, believing in the powers of crystals, believing in reincarnation, believing in metaphysics, believing, like, she even took the Silva method, for meditation and things like
Wow.
that. And so I'm like, for years, I could never picture her, uh, doing that. Now I know. She said, look, I've seen lots of
Yeah.
crafts, well, have you seen beings? She never admitted to seeing beings. Maybe she never recalled, or was, that was never they never let her, remember that. But and then 2 of her sisters as well, and nieces. So anyway, my wife came back like a week after that incident, and here I was. This was mid to late August of 2012, and the day before, I had watched this fellow on YouTube, because I was addicted to
Yeah.
YouTube, and reading these UFO books. His name is Prophet Yahweh, and what he would do is he would speak Hebrew. It was as this heavy set black fellow here
Yeah.
in the U.S. He went on the tour throughout the U.S. Calling these crafts in the daytime, and he would have a video camera, and all of a sudden this little tiny ball would appear in the sky, great distance. You can barely see it, and so here I was. A friend of mine was going to give me all of his parking tickets. I was going to consolidate them. It was at night, 9 o'clock at night, and it was a completely cloudy sky. You couldn't see a star. And I said, well, where are you at? And he says, oh, I'm very close to you. I said, okay, I'll wait for you outside. So here I was, right outside, looking right at the area where my wife saw that huge craft. And I had just remembered that, the day before or that morning, I forgot when, I had seen this video of this guy, Prophet Yahweh, summoning this craft. So I said, the hell with it. Let me try it, And so I started calling this craft that my wife had seen. Oh, I want to see you, the beautiful craft, the angelic looking craft with the glass stained windows, just like at our church. The one that my wife saw, I want to see you, please. And I would turn around, nothing, So I did that for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I'm trying to hold my tongue here, but I said it in a much more powerful term, that basically I'm, going, crazy. I'm going nuts. I really lost it. And I was like,
what am I doing here?
Yeah, this is the bottom. I've reached the bottom, you know. And then all of a sudden, right on top of my neighbor's house, 5 feet above from his roof, was a football stadium
No
sized
way.
craft.
5 feet of, oh my
Okay,
goodness.
it was like in height, it was like 100 feet in height. In length, it was like 2 blocks or 3 blocks in
Wow.
length. Okay, but what it was uh, it was cloaked, I guess the word that I
Yeah.
could use. What you saw was actually thousands upon thousands of oblong lights,
Wow.
um, and it formed the whole skeleton of the
Yep.
outside of it. So you clearly see the skeleton of it, and inside there were also other oblong energy streaks and flashes inside
Yeah.
the craft. Um, but you could also see like the clouds through it,
Yep.
so you could actually see through it,
Yep.
the clouds. Um, and so I immediately started yelling for my daughter, and I said, in the air, and she immediately opened up and she says, "Daddy, what's going on?" I said, "There's a UFO outside, and it's in hiding." Because I didn't know what she meant, what cloaked was. And so, like in 2 seconds, she was downstairs, and she had just turned 10 years old. She was a little
Yes.
girl. And so it was her and I, basically with our necks fully bent, almost looking straight up at a football stadium sized craft, putting on a light show for
Wow.
us. Okay. And she was like, "Wow, Daddy, what is that?" I said, "Sweetheart, it's a UFO. I think it's a UFO." I didn't tell her that I called it,
Yeah.
but she was like, we weren't scared. We were just like being entertained. That's how both of
Yeah.
us felt. Then about 15 minutes after we were there watching this thing, uh, my friend shows up, not by himself, but with his wife and their 17-year-old daughter. Now, both my friend is from Mexico. He's a college graduate. He runs a business here in Mexico, and his wife is from Colombia, also a college graduate. Very rational, even though they're both hardcore
Yep. Yep.
Catholics. Uh, yeah, UFOs is not part of the Catholic agenda here.
Well, I
And
don't know.
so,
According
and
to
then
the
the
Vatican,
17
it
year
seems
old
to be something different. It seems to be quite part of it now.
Correct, but they
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
part. So anyway, they were looking at it and they were like asking me, "What the hell is that?" And I said, "What the hell you think
Yeah.
it is?" It said it's an omni. Omni in Spanish means
Mm.
UFO, and we were conversing in Spanish the whole time. So anyway, they were like, "No, it can't be. It's got to be lightning." Oh yeah, sure. Lightning. It's going circular, oblong shapes, around the ships, and it's actually thousands of these lightning streaks. Oh no, it's got to be the lights from the street behind us, because it's a totally cloudy night, is bumping off the clouds. I said, "Yeah, just right on top of this house," and then the lights are being bumped in a circular
Yeah. Yeah.
format.
Yeah.
And they kept on with excuses. I mean, because they just could not
Mm.
believe
Mm.
what it was, what they were
Mm.
watching. So all of a sudden they were doing this skeptical conversations for 10 minutes, and all of a sudden the ETs in his craft said, "You don't believe me, huh? You don't believe us?" All of a sudden the light pattern changed completely. Instead of these oblong light streaks, thousands of them, it changed to thousands of
Wow.
stars blinking on and off in a fraction of a second. And these weren't just little tiny stars; they were like times the size of
Wow.
Venus. So these were huge, gigantic stars. I mean, and what it was sort of like, if you're, I don't know if they have it out there in Australia, but on the highways they have like this sort of like laser light that turns around in a circular pattern. Um, I guess to avoid, air
Oh,
traffic,
yeah. Sure.
airplanes are
Yep.
flying
Yep. I
low.
understand.
And it was something like that, except it was blinking on and off like 3 or 4 times in a fraction of a
Wow.
second. But it was that powerful, the
Yep.
the light. Um,
And was it
and the
lighting
light
up
that
like
was
the ground around you as well, or was it just bright in your eyes, in your field of vision?
no, it was not like a light ray or like a laser that shot out. No, it was
Mm.
internal. The light was kept
Yes.
internal. Um, and and it didn't really light up the whole place around us. It just lit up the
Yeah.
craft,
Yeah.
It was like you're watching a Christmas tree
Yeah.
or
So
something,
they were containing the
and that's
light
the
emission within their field of reality and their connection of the field of reality they had with you as well towards your field of vision. So I understand what you're saying there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then all of a sudden when that happened, then it became like an entertainment show, because those light streaks started to concentrate in certain areas. For example, be in the upper left
Yeah.
quadrant, then the bottom right quadrant, then in the middle, in the upper quadrant middle. And it was like even though the whole inside of the craft had these flashing stars, they would be like concentrated in certain areas. So everyone began pointing. Oh, look at that over there. Oh, look at over there. Look at that part there. It was like we were entertained. All I needed was, you guys in Australia drink warm beer, right?
No,
Or was that just thing?
that's the UK.
Oh, UK. Okay. Thank goodness. So, anyways, like you and me would be sitting down in a little lounge
Yeah.
chairs. We would have some Fosters
Oh,
with us.
please no, not Foster's.
And, or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So for me, it's some nice
Yeah,
cold beer because it was a hot
yeah, yeah,
summer
yeah,
night. In our lounge chair, and we just be just sitting down and being
yeah,
entertained. That was
yeah,
the atmosphere. Um, they were putting on a
yeah.
show for us, to be entertained, and it was very festive, because. But here's the weird thing: after 10 minutes of this new light pattern, all of a sudden my friends go, "Oh, we got things to do. We got to go."
Isn't that amazing?
That wasn't
That
logical.
you gotta scratch
Okay.
your head and say, well, what was that all about?
And when we're saying this, I didn't even question it. I was like, okay, you got to go. I understand you got things to do. It's another area of control
Yeah,
of your mind.
yeah,
And so he was that, they left, and I said, don't worry about those tickets. I'll take care of them. I'll give you a call tomorrow. And in hindsight, you're like, man, these guys are watching once in a lifetime
yeah.
event.
A
Why are they leaving
world-changing
like that?
event.
World changing event. And so anyway, so my daughter and I then stayed watching this thing for like another 15 minutes. Altogether, my daughter and I were out there for at least 45 minutes. With the time beforehand, with the time with our friends, and then the time after
Wow.
they left. So it was and again, our necks were bent out of shape because we were looking straight up
Yeah,
at this thing
yeah, yeah.
almost. Uh, yeah, we were like at a distance. We were like maybe um, I guess 15 meters away
Mm,
from the house, or less, maybe 10 meters away from the house. Yeah, more like 10 to 15 meters
mm.
was the house. And then the football stadium was on top of the house, like 5 feet from
Yep.
the roof. Um, you know, actually, there was three palm trees on the left-hand side, which blocked the lower quadrant of that
Okay.
craft. So that's how
Oh my
low they were.
goodness.
And so anyway, all of a sudden, I felt like I was attacked by mosquitoes. And I told my daughter, I said, "Come on, let's get out of here. These mosquitoes are killing me." So I grabbed her hand. We went inside. 5 minutes later, my daughter goes to me and she goes, "Daddy, there were no mosquitoes
Mm.
outside." And all of a sudden, it was like the hypnotist snapped his finger. It was like, "Okay, kid, wake up. We're done.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
finished." And I realized, what just happened, what transpired. And I said, holy shit, what just happened? And I quickly ran. I got my camera. I got my video camera. Like in less than 15 seconds, I was outside.
Yep.
Right?
Mm,
Nothing was there. Absolutely
mm.
nothing. You know. And then I said to myself, oh my God, these guys, you know, was my mind controlled again, or was it? Um, and later on, I attended my very first UFO little conference here in Miami. They have this. There's this lady who has MUFON here in
Yep.
Miami. She had a little workshop, and the state director came by with a tape recording of this contactee, who was, by the way, worked for NASA and retired from
Wow.
NASA. And nice coincidence
Yeah,
there, right?
lovely.
And anyway, they saw this craft descend in the middle of the woods, and then he and a friend went closer. just like in the Bentwaters up in England. Similar
Yep.
situation. As they got closer, all of a sudden, when they actually saw that round shaped lighted craft, a swarm of mosquitoes attacked
Oh,
them.
wow.
All of a sudden, they panicked and they started running. The mosquitoes were supposedly biting them. Okay. And then after like 5 minutes of running, all of a sudden there were no mosquitoes. They had no bites on them. They turned around, the craft was gone. And when I heard that, it was a tape recording of this fellow. He was an elderly fellow that was
Yep.
saying this. That's when I first realized. I said, these things control the hell out
Yeah.
of me, man. They control my
Yep.
mind that day with that mosquito thing. Because here's the same exact
Yeah.
story. It's like, it was tried and tested on others, and it worked. So hey, why not do it with Rey Hernandez?
Yeah, exactly.
And it worked
Mm.
perfectly. But more importantly than that event, before that event, as I told you, I was still highly, highly skeptical of all of this. I was on the internet, like 12 hours a day. I was just being confused. I did read lots of
Yeah, you
UFO
told me in our
books.
previous
Okay.
conversation that you were just devouring one book
Yeah.
after another.
Yeah. But not to the extent until
Yeah.
afterwards. But this is what happened afterwards, almost like a couple of days
Yeah.
afterwards. I got this tremendous inclination. Don't bother with the internet. That's
Yeah.
crap. Don't bother reading these ufology, these UFO books. That's junk too.
Yeah.
Okay. All of a sudden, I got an urge to read books on two topic areas. One of them were near-death
Yes.
experiences, and the second one was consciousness
Wow.
studies, but specifically the science of consciousness
Yes.
studies. I don't know if you're familiar with the Institute for Noetic Studies that Dr. Edgar Mitchell
I'm
formed
not
many years
yeah, I'm
ago.
aware of Dr. Mitchell, but
Okay, well,
I'm not
what it
aware of
is,
his own you know, what is it? Um, his school there that he's created.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was in the early 70s. I think he
Noetic
started that.
noetic studies.
Yeah, into Institute for
Mm.
Noetic Studies. That was in 74. I think he created
Mm.
that. But what it was to study telepathy, psychokinesis, all paranormal type of
Yep.
activities in a scientific
Yep.
format. And then, because Dr. Mitchell was also an adherent of this physics theory called the quantum hologram
Mm.
theory, and um, which explains that we have what he called a non-local mind, which is, in essence, we are spirit. We are not body. Okay,
Yes.
we are spirit, and that consciousness is a formal a topic associated with the quantum hologram. Okay, and it's an area that's very science oriented. But what he was doing is he was applying science and physics to this topic that was previously known as metaphysics.
Right.
Okay, so in a nutshell, consciousness studies from a scientific perspective um, is the study of advanced quantum physics through the quantum hologram to explain that we are more than just our brain, that we actually exist outside of our brain, and that's the spirit consciousness. And so those are the type of books that I was reading. Those and near-death experiences. Don't tell me why I started reading those books. I would order like 10 books at a time from Amazon. When I was down to only 2 books left, I would read. I would purchase 10
Yep.
more. Again, when I was down to 2, 10 more. I must have read over
My
300
goodness.
books in those topic
Wow.
areas. This was 18 hours a day,
Holy moly.
12, 12 to 18 hours a day. I gave up YouTube. I gave ufology
Yep.
books. I still have a whole bunch that I purchased that I'd never even got to read. They're in the
Yep.
shelf,
Yep.
unread. Okay. So anyway, I did that for about 4 months until late December of 2012. Again, 3:30 in the morning, I would conk out with a near-death experience book or a consciousness studies book on my lap.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my life. 4 months later, I know why. The ETs were preparing me. Okay, here I was, nationalist, atheist. Okay, I had a mission, and I needed the fast lesson, not these 10-year jobs that they do on a lot
Yeah.
of folks. You know,
Another way of
with
looking at
Ray,
it is you've been undercover and you've been doing it beautifully for so long. It was time to for you to awaken
I,
and go and get on with your
correct.
Earth mission.
My awaken, my awaken had to be quick, bro, because they were delayed for a while. You know. And anyway, and here's the thing. And again, um, on a Friday, this is like a week before Christmas. My daughter had a high fever for 2 days, and so my wife is the one that always brings her to the pediatrician. That day, I don't know what happened, but my wife was not available. So here I was, the first time going to the pediatrician with my daughter, like in 4 or 5 years. I didn't even know the doctor. Okay, she was from Venezuela. And I had never spoken to anybody about all the books I was reading about near-death experiences. Nobody. Okay. No, I had never spoken to anybody about my experiences. No, no friends, nothing. Okay. And my wife thought I was losing it. You know, she says, you got to have faith in God. They were angels. You know, that's the bottom line. You got to go to church. You got to pray. You got to believe in God,
Yeah.
you know, and that was her
Yeah.
stuff, you know. So here I was out of the blue. The very first person I ever mentioned about near death experiences was this doctor. It came out of my mouth. And as I was saying it, I was saying to myself, why in the, you know what? Am I asking this perfect stranger whether she knows what is a near death
Yeah. Yeah.
experience, you know? And I go to, excuse me, doctor, have you ever heard of near death experiences? Okay. I've just finished reading 300 books on this phenomenon. Out of those 300 books, approximately 75 books were written by medical doctors. And out of those, 25 were written by professors in medical
Wow.
schools. And this is a valid scientific phenomenon, carefully studied, and you need to know about it. And so her eyeballs popped out, you know? Um, and I said, "Oh my God, I offended the shit out of this woman," you know. And I said, "Excuse me, doctor, I didn't mean to offend you," you know. She goes, "No, no, you didn't offend me. How did you know I had one?"
Oh, is that
Okay,
right? Beautiful.
so tell me, what are the statistics, the
Yeah.
probabilities of the very first person you ever talked to about near-death experiences had a
Yeah,
near-death
exactly.
experience? Okay,
What
so
are the
here she
chances
was.
of that
She
happening?
told me when she was 10 years old, she had a what are the chances? And the chances are going to increase exponentially with my story here. Um, when she was 9 years old, she had a heart attack. She was wheeled into the hospital dead. Okay. In the emergency room, she floated above her body. She saw the doctors and the nurse that were working on her. She said she then went straight through the wall where she found her parents. She was right above her parents, and she overheard their conversation for 15 minutes. She even saw the people all around. When she woke up, oh, daddy, mommy, what a weird dream I had. You know, um, the doctor, goodness, he was very very tall, like 6'3", 6'4", something like that. You know, blonde hair. The nurse was like 5 feet, very fat, like 200 something pounds. You know, she had a very short haircut, 1950s glasses. Okay, and then the doctor was putting this electric stuff on me, and it just wasn't working. I was floating right above my body. Then I went right through the wall, and I got right on top of you. And she told her parents for 15 minutes exactly the conversation they
Oh,
were having.
fantastic.
Okay. And then the parents said, first of all, you were dead. Secondly, you were in the emergency room across the hall. What the hell's that? How did you know? And her mother said, oh, she was a spirit. She went to the spirit world and came back, sort of thing. And so anyway, 15 minutes later, who comes by to see her? The doctor and the nurse, exactly as she described it.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. That was on a Friday. Okay. Saturday we were at church. Okay, and there was a church dinner for married couples. So my wife sat next to this lady. She's Mexican, and her husband is Cuban, like I am. And I never met this guy before, total stranger. So we had small talk for 5 minutes, getting to know each
Yeah.
other. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, a perfect stranger. I tell this guy, "Excuse me, have you ever heard of near-death experiences?" And his eyeballs pop out. And then he tells me about the experience that his mother, who had died a year ago,
Oh,
in his
wow.
arms. Okay. When she resuscitated, she told him, "You told me this, you told me that, and you were giving me a mouth to mouth and pumping my heart." And then about 15 minutes later, the ambulance came, and the ambulance driver was this big black guy, like 6'3", looked like a football player, followed by a short white woman with blonde hair. He goes, "How the hell you know that? You were dead," because he works in a hospital. He's an MRI technician. So, he had her pulse, her breathing. She was clinically dead. And so she literally described the two ambulance people. She floated above her body, then above the ambulance. Then she felt like she got sucked up in a vacuum cleaner. She went to the tunnel,
Oh, is that right?
saw the
Yeah.
light, saw her deceased husband. Okay. They had an angelic embrace, and then they presented to her to an entity that she perceived as God. And then God said, "Look, you got to go back. There's a lot more things you need to do." And she didn't want to go back. Okay. And so she said that he had to kick her out. And so that was on a Saturday. Okay, Saturday night. The next day, I went every Sunday. Every Sunday, I visit my parents. Okay. Then my father, back then, he was 82 years old. He's bedridden. You name the disease, he has
Yeah,
it.
right. Yeah.
Very, 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 very sick
Yeah.
individual. Um, and so total atheist. I had never seen him in church, never, and not even at funerals. I don't think I've
Yeah.
seen him. And so I said, okay, I got to tell him about what happened the last 2 days. Not about me seeing that craft and reading all those books, but at least the last 2 days. So then I tell him those two stories, and he goes, "Ha, that happened to me." And I go, "Say what?" He goes, "Yeah, that happened to me." He goes, "Remember 15 years ago when I had the open heart surgery? I had the quadruple
Oh,
heart
wow.
surgery. I floated above my body. I saw my dead body down there, my heart all open and stuff. The doctors were working around me. He had everything. Okay. He went to the tunnel, saw the light. He had his parents there, his brother waiting for him. God presented him to God. God gave him a life review. Okay. He told me that he felt like he was up there for 20 years. Okay. God showed him all the good and the bad that he did, not to punish him, but like a lesson, to teach him a lesson. And he saw it, not the experience, not only from his brain, but from the brain of the other people that he had affected. And I said, "Well, do you remember those details?" He goes, "How the hell I remember those details? That was 50 years ago,
Yeah.
And then I turned to my mother. I said, "Mom, you never told me this." And she said what it was when he woke up from the surgery, he was all agitated. And he was telling her about this dream that he had. And then she was like, "Go back to sleep, go back to sleep." It was the medication
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
had, the anesthesia, and you're getting too excited, go back to sleep, goes back to sleep. And she said, this is the first time in 15 years that they've spoken about that.
Wow.
But that, in fact, did take place because he told her that story after he came out
Yeah.
of surgery. So now I ask the audience members here, okay, what are the coincidences? Okay, the first three people you ever talked to about near-death experiences, 3 days in a row, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all had
Oh,
near-death
how good's that?
experiences. Okay, okay, what are
Yeah.
the odds
Yeah.
for that? Okay, and then after that day driving home, I realized I had like an epiphany. I looked up in the sky, and I looked up at God, and I looked up at these ETs. Okay, and I said to both, I said, "Congratulations, you have managed to totally transform me from being a complete atheist, material rationalist, into someone that has more faith in God, more faith in the spirit world, okay, and in life after death than any Catholic priest in Miami."
Wow.
And I said, "I
Yeah.
salute you."
Yeah.
Spanish is "te
Yeah.
felicito."
Yeah.
It's like, "Well, job
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
done." And since that day, I still believe the same way. I have more faith in God, and that there is a spirit world, life after death, than almost anybody. Is something that in 4 months was inculcated in me. And again, I say, to God and these ETs, congratulations, you have totally transformed an individual, complete transformation.
Interesting.
And it was that event, it was after that event in December where everything just took off. All the paranormal experiences. All of a sudden, I was able to identify people that have had contact. Okay. Out of the blue, I would tell people, excuse me, have you ever heard about UFOs? Okay. Now, they didn't want to speak because if it was like a couple, for example, let me tell you one story. This is an example that occurred many, many times. Okay. Here I was, my daughter was on a boat with the University of Miami. It was a shark tagging expedition. Wow. They would get these little baby sharks. They would tag them, take blood samples, things of that sort. So it was an educational program for little kids, and they had University of Miami biology and marine biology students on board with a professor there. So anyway, out of the blue, okay, I asked this young couple, and again, I had only done that like twice before, and I hit the lottery identifying contactees. So again, I get this itch to talk to this couple. Excuse me, have you ever heard of UFOs? Oh, no, the guy answered. The young lady was quiet the whole time. Oh, yeah, no, I've heard of them. I've, Alien Hunters and all these shows that are on the TV and stuff like that. And I said, okay, well, let me tell you my story. And I told him my story. And so afterwards, he's a very nice fellow. He asked me questions and so forth. And we left it at that. About 10 minutes later, this young gal comes up to me. Excuse me, can I talk to you? And I said, sure. She goes, in private. And I said, I must have hit another home run here, Then she starts telling me her story, where a year ago, her mother had picked her up. She lives all the way on the west coast of Florida. And to go there, you have to go through an hour and a half through a middle of a swamp called the Everglades. It's like a huge, gigantic swamp that's thousands of acres in size. And here they were driving in the middle of the night with no traffic around, doing, nice, fast pace, 70 miles per hour. I don't know how that would translate, but, nice, good speed. And all of a sudden, this huge ball that she described as being 6 foot in diameter, glowing like the sun, just shot out of the sky in the middle of the night and latched onto the passenger door.
Wow. Really?
And she said that she could have opened the door and touched it with her hand. Okay. She then jumps on her mother. Both of them are hollering and screaming, and instead of hitting the brakes, the mom goes to 100, and here they were swerving all over the place at 100, almost crashing. She said that craft stayed with them like for 20 to 30 minutes. The whole time they were screaming and hollering. Okay. Then this huge 6 foot ball then just disengages and then shoots up into the sky. And I said, have you ever talked to anybody about those experiences? She says, never. It says, besides you and your mother, who else knows about this? No one else. I said, have you ever mentioned it to your father? No. Do you have brothers and sisters? Yes. Have you mentioned it to them? No. And so this is just a secret that they've kept between them both. And I was the first one that she's ever told.
That's amazing.
And then I gave her my card and I said, call me and contact me. She contacted me. I sent her my email, and at that time, I didn't know anything about support groups or, this type of work, so I just said, just hit me up, I'll talk to you whenever you need. But I did send her up to then. I had like 55 pages worth of experiences, that she was able to read. So that's just an example of some of the things that were happening to me. Then the big event came.
Okay, we will pause it right there and take a quick break. Please stay with us as we will return shortly for more of this most intriguing and informative conversation. We are submersed in a construct that was designed to break us and keep us broken, but it hasn't. It failed. We still go on because we were designed from an eternal template of infinite creativity and not a synthetic house of cards built on pride and false power. Breaking free from the programs and paradigms that hold us down takes courage, endurance, tenacity, and trust. The reason it is so hard is because to be a free and sovereign being, we have to smash every lie, even if it hurts. it is good to be reminded of how resilient, unbreakable, magnificent and powerful we truly are. And if anything provides a foundation for that, it is the book Our Universal Journey. Go to ouruniversaljourney.com.au. The views and opinions expressed by guests on Superwoo Radio are not necessarily the views and opinions held by me, the host George Cavassalis, and Superwoo Radio. In today's world, it is crucial to exercise discernment, but it is also just as important to seek common ground and share in the perspectives that unite us. The music for this episode is brought to you by Carl Madison. The album, On the Road to Tibet, and is available through Medwin Goodall Music at medwingoodall.net. Welcome back to the second hour of episode 30 here with Rey Hernandez. We will now pick up where we left off in this most excellent conversation.
So that's just an example of some of the things that were happening to me. Then the big event came. The big event was, I was driving to work one day. I rarely go to work, just to pick up mail and things like that once in a while when I have some business to attend. It was a traffic jam at 8:30 in the morning, bumper to bumper. And all of a sudden, I got what I call an ET download. Okay. I got a voice right inside my head, which gave me an instruction. And then I saw a video.
Did you, when you say you saw the video, you're saying that you saw the video in your mind? Okay.
In my mind. Yeah, it was a video. It wasn't like a little projector, outside. It was in my mind, a video. And it was very, very clear. It was like you were watching TV or something like that. And what it was that, I don't know if they have that show out there in Australia called The Price is Right, where they have this model lady spinning this circle thing, and each of them is different colors and is worth a certain amount of money, that type of thing. Okay. Well, the money, and instead what you would put in each of these different slots, different types of paranormal phenomenon. Okay. So as this thing was spinning around me, I was in the middle. Okay, the contactees were in the middle. All of a sudden, you saw out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, telepathy, consciousness studies, the spirit world. All of these paranormal type of experiences were spinning around, and what was holding everything together was quantum physics. Okay, that was the vision I got. Okay, and then what I was told in my brain was that I had to do a video that dealt with the relationship between God. Is it not God? I'm sorry. Between the spirit world, ETs, and quantum physics. I had to do a documentary between the spirit world, ETs, and quantum physics. And I called my friend Christina, who at that time was the only person I could talk to. She herself was a big time experiencer. And I'm like, this is just what happened. And she says, don't worry, Ray, if you need to pull over, pull over. I said, how the hell I can pull over? I'm in the middle of a traffic jam
Yeah.
here, and I said, it wasn't like a traumatic thing. It was just like, holy shit, what the hell just
Yeah.
happened? And so later on, when I got home that night, um, I was thinking to myself, I was like, first of all, for documentary, I don't know anything about documentaries. I only use camcorder. Quantum physics, I'm terrible in math. You know, I mean, quantum physics, forget it. What the hell is these things talking about? I'm the last person, to do this video. Um, and so anyway, when I got home that night, I got an email from Mary Rodwell. Okay, the email was 4 months
Wow.
old. Okay, the email was like, "Dear Ray, I'm sorry I lost your email, but I just found it right now. Okay, and I deeply apologize. And by the way, your story where you and your daughter saw that huge spaceship UFO outside your house, that's an unbelievable story. I've never heard of anyone seeing a football stadium sized craft so close like you and your daughter did. I really want to talk to you,
Yeah.
about your
Did
experience."
you? And what what
And
what
so I
inspired
meet
you to write to Mary in the first place, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, what it was, I sent like to 10 different people, on the
Sure.
internet. Remember, I had
Sure.
gone into the
Okay.
internet.
Yeah.
So I thought people that might be receptive to my
Yes.
experience. I sent it to Whitley Strieber, to her, to get some
Sure.
response. Okay. And I think I only got to like two responses and no follow up. And here she was sending me, this thing 4 months later, and let me just tell you a little bit about that 4 months incident. This was in May of last year. This is almost exactly a year ago. Okay, a year ago, 1 year ago. So a couple of weeks ago, I go to Mary. I said, Mary, remember that incident from a year ago where you sent me that email that you had lost my email from 4 months ago? I said, do you do that frequently? Is that like standard procedure? She goes, Ray, I can barely keep up with one day's worth
Yeah.
of emails. How in the hell am I going to go back 4 months to look
Yeah.
for your email? you know, because she's littered,
Yeah.
so overwhelmed
Yeah.
with email. And I said, but Mary, that was 4 months old, remember? She goes, of course I remember. I just can't, make heads or tails of why that
Mm.
happened. And then she goes, but Ray, they controlled me to go back to look for
Mm.
that email. You
Yeah.
know that. And I says, now I know.
Yeah.
but beforehand, it was like, you can't make
Isn't
heads
it
or tails
interesting
of
how
this
they're
stuff.
reaching down into the matrix and they're steering and guiding people's lives? So, a big question needs to be raised there as well as to,
Oh my goodness, I'm like total program. I'll give you more details as we go along,
yeah,
because I'm not cognizant of all
yeah,
these things, but yet I'm being fully guided. Well,
mm,
you'll see the
mm,
details later on. So here I sent Mary back an email. I said, Mary, that's nothing. Look what happened
yeah,
today.
yeah,
And so she said, Ray, look, let's talk on Skype, right? And so that was the first time I ever used Skype. Mary
yeah,
taught me. And then I had a phone call, a Skype call with her that either that night or the night before. It was that same night, or the next night. I forgot. Anyway, on the phone, I tell her, what's been happening to me, all the paranormal experiences, all the near death experience and consciousness books that I had read, and how that totally transformed me. And she says, Ray, that was all planned out. That wasn't by
yeah, yeah,
coincidence. They need you. They need you for a
yeah,
mission
yeah,
here. Okay. And they had to do the quick, the quick awakening, not like the standard contactee. You got the crash
yeah,
course here. And then she then tells me that she's a very good friend with this emeritus professor of astrophysics from Harvard. His name is Dr. Rudy Shield. And she said that she was at the John Mack Institute, in a workshop, a several-day workshop, and that Dr. Shield was actually a member of the John Mack
mm,
Institute. And there where she met him, and they became good friends, and they still maintain communications. And so, we started talking, a little bit about my experience, and we left it at that we would continue chatting. The very next day at 9:30 in the morning, I get a phone call. Hello, ring, ring. Hello, is this Rey Hernandez? Yes, who's this? Oh, this is Dr.
Oh,
Rudy
wow.
Shields. I go,
Wow.
who? I go, who? He goes, oh, doctor. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. It's Dr. Rudy Shields. I'm a friend of Mary. I'm a retired professor of astrophysics at Harvard. Um, and I said, oh my God, excuse me. I forgot. He says, no, no. How could you know who I was going to give you a call at 9:30 in the morning? For the next hour and a half, this man who's like a genius among geniuses began spoon feeding me quantum
Wow.
physics. Okay, and how quantum physics can explain paranormal phenomena and how my vision was actually correct.
Wow.
And then at the end, he basically said, "Look, Ray, if you're going to do this documentary, count me in. I will be your science advisor.
Oh,
Okay?
fantastic.
I think you have a special." He said, "I think you have a very special mission." And he also said, "Even if you're going to do an organization or whatever you do, count me in." And then he said, "I'm also very dear friends with Dr. Edgar Mitchell."
My goodness.
And he said, Edgar only lives, he says, Edgar only lives an hour and a half away from you. He says, as a matter of fact, I'm going to give him a call after we hang up, and I'm going to tell him about our conversation. Okay. And then he gave me Edgar's number and encouraged me to call. And here I was, I already knew who Dr. Mitchell was because of all those books on consciousness studies that I read. He is basically considered the father of modern consciousness studies. Okay. And I was like petrified. I said, how the hell am I going to call this guy? Not only, he was the sixth man on the moon, Apollo 14. He also has a PhD in physics from MIT. He's also the father of modern consciousness studies, and he's also one of the few astronauts, at least the one that is publicly out in the open, saying that Roswell existed and that we're being
Mm.
visited, and that it's a real phenomenon. This ET communication. And he also publicly stated that he had some type of shamanic experience when he was up there,
Wow.
and some type of telepathy that took place. And so, about 4 hours later, I managed to get the nerve to give him a call. And I call him up. She goes, "Oh, I've been expecting your phone call." And I'm like, what the hell? This guy's got ESP or something. He's expecting my phone call. And then he said he had read Rudy's email. Excuse me
Sure.
a second. He had read my email, email that Rudy had sent about my experience. And then he said, um, uh, Ray, Rudy told me about your experience and what you've been going through. And he says, I just want to reiterate that if you are doing any type of project in the future, Rudy and I will be your science
Wow. That
advisors.
is
You can count
fantastic.
us in because, yeah, he says something's happening, through you, with you, and the message is so important that it needs to be conveyed to the
Mm.
public. And then, and this is what he said, which really rang a bell with me. Uh, if you're forming any organization in the future, count me in as your scientific advisor. Now, we never talked to anybody about forming an organization, but he was the one that put it in my
Wow.
mind. So that night, I got on Skype with Mary and Christina. Christina was the one that just called me a second ago, and so here I was uh, um, with Mary and Christina, and I told them what had happened today. And I said, and Edgar said, if we're forming an
I was wondering.
organization,
I
I
was
said
wondering who that.
that sounds like a
I was actually
brilliant idea.
wondering who that would have been connecting in this moment, in with our energetic field, this unified field that we're
Christi-
creating.
Christina knows, one of our
Wow,
co-founders.
that's
Isn't that
beautiful.
something?
So,
Which I haven't spoken to her in a while, in several days. Um, so the three of us, including Christina, who just called, um, I mentioned to him, the nature of the conversation and Edgar's suggestion. I said, why don't we form an organization? We've got the bedrock here with these two, the most famous physicists, in the
yep.
world. Um, and so from there, Mary said, this is being I don't want to put words in her
Yep.
mouth, but I'll put my own words in my mouth, which is divinely guided, and Christina as well. She felt those energies as well, and we formed an organization. And then a couple of days later, Mary came up with the name F.R.E.E, Foundation for Research into
It's a
Extraterrestrial
great
Encounters.
name. Fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then within a week, we had the majority of our members, and we have like a who's who. I will go, for example, Barbara Lamb. Okay, Barbara Lamb is just as well known as Mary in the United States. She's been working with contactees and abductees for about 40
Wow.
years. She's published several books. She's internationally in demand. She's gone to Europe numerous times, spoken in England numerous times, all throughout the U.S. I don't know about Australia, but I know she's extremely well known, and she's just a loving individual. You mentioned to anybody that's in the supportive aspects of the contactee phenomenon, she's right up there with Mary.
Fantastic.
She's probably number one in the U.S.
Fantastic.
In terms of the standard. Um, oh goodness, I won't mention all the names, but it's sort of like a
Yeah,
who's who. We've
you got
got
Whitley.
Whitley
Yeah.
Strieber,
Linda.
this other lady, Linda
Yep.
Moulton Howe. We've got this other physicist, Ralph Steiner,
Fantastic.
who again is a genius among geniuses. With numerous experiences. We have Marilyn Hughes, who's the founder of the Out of Body Travel Foundation. And again, she has her own website. She's published over 90 books on the topic. We have Dr. John Climo, who is the world's, in my opinion, the world's leading academic in the paranormal phenomena. He's written 3 books on paranormal issues and hundreds of articles. Again, all published. He's a professor, for 40 years. So it's not, someone that writes about, the paranormal Joe Schmo.
Sure.
Um, and on, people at that level. We've got the head of MUFON for abduction research, Kathleen Martin. We have a co-author who wrote a book recently, who's probably one of the top-selling books in ufology the last couple of years. The book is entitled Alien Abduction Files. Her name is Denise Stoner. We have Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who was the first academic to do research on contactees and abduction research since 1961. And again, his perspective is the total antithesis from the evil alien agenda, because he's 84 years old, and he's seen it and he's heard it all, and again, he's a retired
Can
professor.
you just mention his name again?
Dr. Leo Sprinkle.
Leo Sprinkle. Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
Because
Leo Sprinkle.
that's
He's very
my
well known here in the United States.
role here, if you want to call it a mission, whatever you want to call it. My life's path is actually I'm a paradigm breaker, so I'm here to actually expose the different levels of agendas here on this planet. Yeah. So I'll look into
Leo
his work.
certainly did that for a long time. Yeah, he did that because he started off in 1961. He was like a pioneer to do it academically, to research academically. And he was pretty much on his own for many, many years in terms of seeing that it was not, an evil alien type of perspective. Even though he admits that there are, negative entities out there. It's not, of course, but it's not the universal opinion that you see in the U.S. mass market media.
Oh, like that every single alien is evil. No, that's or extraterrestrial is
correct.
evil. That's just insane. That really is racist.
Correct.
And like to say that all reptilians are evil, that's completely racist. And people just don't understand all the different cultures that exist out there, all the different civilizations. And all you got to do is, understand the quote, as above, so below. And then look around on the earth and you have Americans who are really loving beings and Americans who are quite evil. Just like you have Australians who are really loving beings and Australians who are really quite evil. You've got grey races who are really quite loving, and even within the same species who are really quite evil, even though they function from a lot of different collective hive mind groups and cultures. You still got to understand, even within a collective hive mind, you have those who function, to understand the environment of consciousness and the environment of the mind. It's a very different way of going about doing things. But I won't need to disrupt your flow too much more. I just wanted to interject there and just share a bit of that.
Well, I have no knowledge of those topics that you're talking about, because I just want to tell the
Mm,
audience that I've outside of that energy being that
mm,
I saw, I never saw any other type
mm,
of being. Outside of that one time consciousness download, I never had any other conscious
mm.
downloads. Um, so, to the best of my recollection, I have no conscious communication with any type of external
Sure.
beings. But what's happened to me is that, again, all of these synchronicities is not even a word, because it's just way past that. Things are being divinely guided all around me. Um, and let me go into some more details. Like, for example, how F.R.E.E was formed. Okay, I mean, what are the coincidence that all of a sudden Dr. Rudy Shields was going to
Yeah.
call me?
Yeah.
Okay, that he offered for me to move forward with an
Yeah.
organization. That Dr. Mitchell, offered, was expecting my phone call, and again he was participating in this advisory board that says, look, put me on your advisory board. Advisory board of what? I've got nothing. And I mean, and you can't make these stories up. And then all these people in F.R.E.E came on board, the vast majority of them within a week. And um, and maybe it'd be good now to transition to this other individual who's a very special individual. Um, you want to try doing that now?
I think that would be really quite lovely, because I think it's a good time
Okay.
to introduce this Mr. X, if you want to call him that.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of weird stories associated with and around Mr. X. Uh, all right, here we go. I never knew who this fellow was. I met him in a courthouse through his elderly aunt.
Just before you get going
Uh,
on that, your life is quite adventurous, really. Would you actually stop and just step back from it for a moment and be the observer from that for a moment? Your life is become very adventurous. It's quite the ride.
it's a ride that sometimes I reach out to my dear Australian friend Giles Campbell, also a very well known experiencer, and I send them emails with like a guy drinking a bottle of whiskey, and on the bottom I'll put Giles, help, help, it's like about the breaking point, because it's so much stuff, so much stuff.
Oh,
Um, because at least if you could see them, if you could communicate with them, at least you could have some type of interaction. You could at least try to reach some level of sanity. But when all these things are just being plucked right on top of you,
I I,
um,
I
so
feel
many
that if
different.
we have a discussion about our personal, like for example, it was only about 3 weeks ago that I had a meeting with a particular extraterrestrial race and two people incarnated on Earth. One of them is an incarnation, well, both of them actually are incarnations of from this extraterrestrial race. One that was incarnated quite some time ago, and one that has been incarnated still some time ago, but more recent than the previously mentioned person. And I was having a telepathic communication with them. So to understand how to talk to a human being on this level, and then to have symbiotically going on a telepathic communication with an extraterrestrial race, and to understand how to navigate that, how to govern that, how to understand the sensory that's involved in our going to the realm of the mind, because I also function in the realm of the heart and the soul, and to understand the difference between consciousness and soul, and to know how to navigate between the two unifying fields, that exist in this universe. There's more unifying fields, but they're two main ones. So yeah, it'd be good to have that conversation with people who are looking to be able to move into this role, because telepathic communication is a very fickle thing, because there are beings who use that to control our minds, and then there's beings who are very respectful and will treat you with great respect and don't impose into your mind. See? And then there's times when we get nudges from friends and family, interdimensionally speaking, who you could say are imposing in our mind, but they're actually steering and guiding and making suggestions for us that maybe you want to go down this path, in life, make that decision, that kind of thing. So there's all these varying nuances and subtle nuances to be consciously aware of. So I just want to add that to the mix in the conversation, because it's very important in moving forward for a lot of people. And not just you, Ray, but a lot of people, including me. I'm still in the process of understanding how to navigate my way through all of this. But I feel for those of us who have been exercising in this area for some time, we have something that we can share to others who are new to this kind of experience, to understand how to engage, how to talk. It's like you go to, let's say, you talk to your neighbour, or you talk to your cousin, or you talk to a friend. You engage with them on a particular way. So therefore the vibrational transfer of energy between the two of you has a particular feel about it. You enter into a unified paradigm where you, an arena where you are communicating with. But then when you go and you speak with somebody, who's used to very high protocol, like someone who's a priest, for example, could have used a better example, but anyway, we'll use a priest as an example. Their method of protocol of communication has a different paradigm, a different arena of energetic unified field. So the moment you engage with that being, you function differently than you would with your pal and your buddy and your cousin. So you've got to understand that in the world of telepathy, it's the same. We have different levels of protocols, different levels of communication, different paradigms and realities that get created in the world of consciousness and in the world of mind. And some beings don't like certain environments, and some beings and races and cultures don't wish to communicate in a particular way because it's unsavory to them, and some of them actually feel that some mind constructs are actually diseased. So they see it as toxic to them. So it's really quite fascinating when you actually get more into the deeper field of consciousness and mind communication. So I just thought I'd share that interjection.
No, thank you. I think for me, I was told by more than one person that with time I will have communication, but at this point my mission will now allow it, because I cannot have any distractions. But anyway, with this one individual, again, it was a coincidence meeting.
Just another coincidence, right?
Another coincidence, right? And what happened was that this poor person, anyway, he was taking over from a series of attorneys that had been litigating, doing some litigation on his mother's estate, which basically they cleaned them out, So then he was going to do the appeals. But he already had gifted those interests away. He was not interested in it. He had gifted away to his aunt, an elderly aunt. So he was doing it more from like trying to teach them a lesson on earth, okay, that what they did was wrong, okay. So he was going to be writing these appellate briefs, these 3 appellate briefs, which are very, very complicated. And here's this guy who's not an attorney at all. So I gave him a card. And the way he responded, I immediately knew he was a contactee. He had contact. Okay, I knew it. Ding and ding and ding and ding. The bells were ringing all over the place. So I already had those suspicions. About 2 weeks later, he sends to me 4 briefs, each of them 150 pages, that a professor from Harvard Law School could not even have written.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I certainly could not have written them. Okay. and that's my field, which is the probate
Wow.
field, because I deal with inheritance
Okay.
tax
So,
for the
yeah.
IRS. So that's
Yeah.
my field. I could have never touched what this
Wow.
guy did. Okay, and after that, it was ding a ding a ding, confirmed,
Mm,
confirmed. This is a not a regular
mm.
person. Okay. Um, then after that, I sent him an email with all of my experiences. Now, at that time, we hadn't had the conversations with Mary, with Edgar, and with Rudy, okay, because that hadn't
Mm.
experienced yet. It was right before. So I sent him all those stories, and then he responded back. He says, "Dear Ray, I wish we could communicate either by phone or by email, but I can't. It would have to be in person." Okay. About 4 months later, he came to Miami and we chatted. Okay. At that, this person, let me see how much to reveal. Okay. I'll hold back. So I'm going to hold back like 75% of this person,
Sure.
which is not going to do him justice. But because if I reveal a lot of these things, people might be able to identify
Yeah.
who
Look, I
this person
understand you need
is.
to be respectful. And I respect
Yeah.
that. I respect that. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. But basically, this person is not like a normal
Yeah.
human. This person has special powers. Okay. Healing powers, not healing either. We're talking about highly advanced healing powers. A little bit about the background of this person. So we're jumping ahead a little bit. Um, this person, at the age of 8, was doing advanced calculus in his
Can I
brain.
just interject
Okay.
here on the record? Okay.
At this
Okay.
part now, and I'll tell you when to. Okay, let me continue with Mr. X here. um, Mr. X, basically at the age of 8 years old, was doing advanced calculus. As a very young teenager, he began to do mystical meditation at the age of 13. Uh, the first 3 times he went out of body. Okay, starting with the fourth time, he went straight into the astral realms. Okay,
Amazing.
and then
Amazing.
uh, this individual has spoken about every little nook and cranny of the astral
Yeah.
realms because he's told me that there are negative entities, that are medium
Hmm.
entities, there's this type of entities, there's like a million and one different types
Yep.
of entities. He knows that the world is full of yin and yang, of good and
Yep.
evil, but he didn't coin it good and evil. He used a totally different
Mm.
terminology. So this person is, highly refined in terms of how he expresses himself, not like I express myself in terms of this other world that's out there, um, or the vast majority of people. He has very, very specific, fine-tuned terminology. Um, um, but yet, on the other hand, um, uh, he's a deeply, deeply spiritual
Mm.
person, the most spiritual person I've ever
Yep.
met. Okay. But on the other hand, he's the most intelligent person I've ever met from a straight logic and
Sure.
physics. So his both sides of his brain are developed to the fullest capacity. I hope I'm articulating that properly.
Well, yeah,
um,
they'd be quite
um,
extensively, functional is probably a good way to do it because
yeah,
to have the human brain in its full capacity, I don't think anybody's living with that at the moment. No,
yeah. This
it'd be
person
pretty
is,
close
I
close
think.
to it though.
I Yeah, I've gone to very elite,
Yeah,
universities at the most advanced level. Berkeley has the most Nobel Prize winners for any university in the world, and I've met many, many very, very smart people at Berkeley. No one touches
yeah.
this guy. That's where he's at. Um, at the age of 18, his father killed his mother.
Oh, that's
Okay,
tough.
what he was told by these highly advanced beings that he was going to go straight into medical school at the age of 18. He was told that he needed to take a break. So for 2 years, all he did, 18 hours a day, in his room, was to meditate,
Correct.
just like a Buddhist monk, that will go into these caves. He did that for 2 straight years, a straight meditation. And in those 2 years was when he really truly knew for the first time who he really was. And he began living in that reality. And he knows that his reality is not down here, that he's forced to live this reality, his material self.
Forced to.
But when
Really?
you took,
He feels like he's forced to.
no, again, I'm not articulating it appropriately as he would. That's my
Okay.
word. He never
Okay.
conveyed that. But what he's saying, he's living in this
Yep.
material body. But in essence, that's just one small sliver of
Yep.
who he is. Okay. And he's fully consciousness the whole time that he's actually not his material body, that he's actually something else. He always talks in the third person, like we and us.
That's interesting. I always find it interesting when someone speaks in that way. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. When he speaks about humans, he says humans, like he's not part of the human race, Um, let me see. It's difficult to convey
Sounds
that
like more like a
image, but
walk-in setup when someone speaks in that manner. Interesting.
no. Well, anyway, I'm just this person is highly talented. Let me put this on the record. This information, okay? Over a 3-day period, this person got highly advanced physics downloads. In the first day, he had solved the problem of unification theory.
Wow.
And just for the audiences, let me give a little background. Physics is divided in two halves. One is the physics of very, very large objects, which is relativity, and space and time and gravity and electromagnetism. Those types of concepts are concepts of relativity. Einstein was, as everyone knows, is the first one to put that out there. Then the other half of physics is the physics of the very, very small objects, and that's quantum physics. And that's the physics of the atom and the subatomic particles. And quantum physics and relativity have been scientifically experimented with and have been accepted through thousands of experiments, numerous experiments. So it's been proven beyond the shadow of a doubt, each of these two components. Yes. However, when you try to unify them and put them together, it's oil and water, girl. Oil and water. They don't mix. Okay. So everyone knows that there's something else out there, that it's not just relativity and quantum physics. There's another type of physics that out there which explains the real reality. And that's why the last 40 years of Einstein's life, was dedicated to trying to find the unifying theory. Yeah. And the most common attempts have been different types of string theories. Okay. Now, what this person told me that he was guided over a 7-day period, 18 hours a day in front of a computer. So just like you download articles, to a computer, very fast downloads, he was doing that. He was reading these articles like in a download fashion.
Wow.
And then he got educated from the very basics physics of Maxwell's equations and things of that, educated, starting from the old stuff, going into the new school. Okay. By the end of the 5th day, he had solved the unification theory problem.
Amazing.
Okay. On the 6th day, he had solved the physics of zero-point energy, which is basically what we consider consciousness, So he had solved the physics of consciousness. Okay, now to continue, here I am. I met this individual in a Starbucks. This part can be included. He tells me, Ray, the only person that could understand this unification theory of physics is an expert in black holes. And he goes, as a matter of fact, black holes don't really exist. Okay. This is before Stephen Hawking came out publicly. and it's in my notes that I
Well,
wrote.
there's portals, there's
Uh,
doorways.
in my uh, what he said is Stephen
Mm,
Hawkins is wrong. Okay, that they're not the way
mm,
he describes is something
mm,
totally. Okay, but if someone understands that there's something totally different, that person can begin to comprehend the unification theory, because inside these black holes, what is previously known as the event
mm,
horizon, Einstein's theories break down,
mm,
and it's something
mm.
totally different. And I told him, guess what? As part of our advisory board, we have Dr. Rudy Shields, who's the world's preeminent physicist in black
Wow.
holes. And he goes, get the hell out of here.
Wow.
No, no way. And he didn't even know who he was. He didn't even know who he was. Okay. So again, getting back into statistics. Okay. What are the probabilities of that
What are the chances
happening?
of that happening?
Okay.
Awesome.
What are the chances of that?
Awesome.
Okay. Secondly, he said, in terms of the 0 point energy, he says, who the hell is going to be able to understand it? Okay. Because there's so few researchers that actually do the physics of 0 point energy. It's almost like a non field. And I said, well, one down, two to go. Let me address number two. The last time I was in Edgar Mitchell's house, I asked Edgar, what do you do with your spare time? He says, Ray, I mainly work in two areas. One is the physics of energy healing, and the second area is the physics of 0 point energy. And he rattled off all these names, okay? And and he says that's what he does.
Wow.
And he named three or four names that I've subsequently researched, and these guys are like the leading physicists
Oh
in
my
this area.
goodness. Yeah,
Okay,
well, my
and
understanding is
so
that, not, and I'm by no means anywhere knowledgeable about this stuff at all. I'm just a guy on the street. That 0 point energy has to do with understanding the fractal nature of this reality, to understand the loop back as we come down into our subatomic, and to know that every nuclei of every atom is a stargate, which loops you back then back to the actual universe. That to me is to understand 0 point energy. They're actually accessing the field
yeah,
of
that's
the energetic field of the universe, but you must also understand the fields of intention to understand 0 point energy. Otherwise, you're playing
yeah,
with danger. If you don't understand there's certain unified fields in the universe. You know, one of them is love, as we know. The other one, which is the technological based societies out there use to navigate and use as highways, is time. They use time to navigate their way through the universe. That's another unifying field. And the third one, the main one, which is the core unifying field, which is the intentive unified field, has to do with universal law. So we're going back to, and this will be where your field comes into it. It goes back to, when I say universal law, I mean LORE law, not LAW, because LAW is a synthetic construct. LORE is the natural organic construct of co-creative agreements between beings, and then you go into the manifestation of realities, how realities get created to begin with, and what are the foundational consciousnesses of those realities. Therefore, they are the PowerPoints of the energy for a reality to be created. So you're plugging into living beings, see? So to understand 0 point energy, you must understand these different layers and different threads of unifying fields, because these are all components of unifying fields within the greater theory of the unified field theory, which is a generalized term. And when you go looking into it
yeah.
deeper, then it opens up to all these other unifying fields: time, law agreements,
I I
love,
I
co-creative
I
intentions.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would say that what you're saying is correct, because his knowledge
Mm,
base is not just in the strict physics of this
that's right.
reality.
Got to
Okay,
go beyond it.
um, it's way
Mm,
beyond that. It's all these other
mm-hmm,
laws, and it's difficult for him to explain these
mm,
concepts.
mm,
Okay, so he has to like tone it down, so we can
sure.
understand with it. But he basically says is that there's a spiritual unification
Yes.
theory, and then there's physics
Yes.
unification theory. And what you were just talking about were many of the concepts that he always
Okay.
articulates in terms of the spiritual unification
Brilliant.
theory. And I will get that material to him and give you some feedback on that. But getting back into this, the 0 point stuff, I said, look, we've got someone here who's been specializing in this for many, many years, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, with his team here. And he says, done deal. You got someone now to look at, your physics of 0 point energy. He goes, lo and behold, I need someone to address the third phenomena, which I won't, state. Okay.
Can you state it
And
off
then
the
I said,
record?
well, let me give an example that can be on the
Okay.
record. Okay. I said, look, to address that third problem that you have, we have this individual called Dennis Briefer. His name is Dennis Briefer. He was the past president of the John Mack Institute. Dennis is a physicist and an engineer, and for the last 30 years has been working on the physics of advanced energy applications. Okay. And so it's not a coincidence that he's there in our group as
Wow.
well. So again, I go back, that was my very first meeting with this person. Again, coincidence after
Mm.
coincidence, or is it more than
Yeah.
a coincidence?
We're really, we know there's no such thing as coincidence ultimately, of course.
Yeah. And then after that, what had happened was that all of a sudden I started freaking out, because what this guy was telling me, and which were concluded to be accurate by Rudy and Edgar, because he gave me 10 pages of advanced Egyptian hieroglyphics, physics stuff, which I couldn't make heads or tails, So I gave it to both of them, and their jaws dropped off. I physically gave it to Edgar, and then Edgar confirmed all of it, and he says, "My God, where'd you get this?" And I told him where I got it, and I explained to him. And then, so it was at that point that we then set up this group to review the work of this individual. Okay. And we had a difficulty getting that project off the ground because this person had never spoken to anybody except myself.
Wow.
Okay. And he didn't want to go out public. He didn't want to release the information because he said, Ray, if some crazy nut can get, one of these devices, he said it can explode, half of New York City just with a toilet bowl full of water.
Oh, wow.
And so what he did right before I met him, he had self-medicated himself. He had gone to a psychiatrist, gotten these medications that prohibited him from dreaming.
Yep.
So he wouldn't have any contact at
Yep.
night. And then refused to even think. And then he went to a hypnotist to forget everything that he had learned. So that's when I came to him. And our discussion the whole time was, who gave this to you? Was this benevolent or malevolent? He says, no, it's straight from the highest source, and I know why they gave it to me. He talked a little bit about, about missions and into that. He didn't go into details, but was like, he knew it was benevolent, that it was meant for society to have some of this information.
It's coming. That
But
phase on this planet is coming when we break free from all the restricting technology, the enslaving technologies, and we merge into and we recreate a new reality, which will, because it's a phase we need to get through. We need to get through a short phase of liberating technologies, and then we'll actually move to a phase where we transcend all technology. We won't need any technology whatsoever, because everything will be we'll be able to function completely from our organic nature and our natural interface, universal ego interface, which is called consciousness. It's mind energy.
Yep, definitely. He talked about that too. So what happened was that we had a therapy period, 6-month period, to transition him back into this reality. because he had been operating in that other reality, for so long, refusing to acknowledge who he was, because he basically shut himself down for 3 years. And then with the assistance of Mary, and then others, because every week we had these group therapy calls, and each week I would add a different person.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you a little bit about one of these conversations. He was on sort of like the 6th week of our group therapy session, and on board we had Mary Rodwell, Barbara Lamb, Marilyn Hughes from the Outer Body Foundation, Dr. John Klimo,
Wow.
Christina Knowles, who's another very empathic contactee. And then what happened was he left to go to work. And then after he left, one of the ladies then got a channeled message. And here I was, I'm getting, and I knew already what she meant.
Hang on a sec. Can you repeat
and
that?
was
Because you
that
just cut out again.
she says, I'm getting slammed. I'm getting slammed. And what she meant by that was that she was getting a download, okay, or a communication, whatever you might want to term it. And then she started talking about his past life, that he was here on a mission to provide energy, to new knowledge to this world, and that and then that sentence was being finished then by Christina, and then Mary would then finish Christina's sentence, and that went on for 3 minutes. Each of these 3 ladies would be finishing each other's sentences. And that's when it started, all 3 of them at the same time, finishing each other's sentences. We can cut back in. So here, these ladies were channeling a message given to them regarding this gentleman. The next day, they told me to tell him that it wasn't his fault for what transpired in his previous reincarnation. And then he didn't even hesitate. He just said, I know it wasn't my fault. Tell them thank you for that information. But I was told all of my previous past lives when I was 18 years old. 2 years.
Can you hang on? You're cutting out again. Can you just say that last bit again?
That when he was 18 years old, he was told all of his previous meditations. And that and all of his previous missions, and to thank the ladies, but he already knew that information.
Sure.
But he deeply appreciated that they had the love to tell him that information. And so here I was. You had these eminent physicists verifying the information that this person gave me. Here you had these very well-known ladies being channeled all at the same time, talking about this person's previous past life and his missions, that he still had a very similar mission in this current life, and that he acknowledged all of that. And that was the first time that I really couldn't handle it, I started to drink.
Wow.
I got drunk for 3 days in a row.
Because you didn't know how to deal with that knowledge, that information, that knowing, too much weight on your shoulders?
It was too much weight on my shoulder because everything was being worked through me. The catalyst that brought those ladies in. I was the catalyst that brought him in. I was the catalyst that brought the physicists in. It's all of this is independent of F.R.E.E. It's not associated with F.R.E.E. What we're doing with this physics project.
That's an important statement to make.
And then
that is very good to clarify that.
Yeah. And again, I'm like in the middle of all of this. And all at once, all these things were being clarified.
Let alone F.R.E.E. You'd think F.R.E.E. would be enough weight on your shoulders, but to have this as well, my goodness, Ray.
Exactly. Now, this is even more important.
Wow.
This project is even more important. Okay, just to let you know.
Wow.
And so what happened was 4 days later, we have this young girl, a lady, who, every 2 weeks she comes by and she cleans our house. And we've known her for a long, long time. Now she's a friend of ours. We've known her husband for a long time. And so the year before, when we had seen that craft with my daughter had told his wife, "Oh, we saw a UFO, outside, And so she told her husband. And then her husband had then told me that, oh, when I was young, I used to meditate. And a couple of times I saw UFOs. So, no, we never followed the conversation after that. Okay. So that 4 nights after, I was getting drunk every night. Okay. After all these incidences took place, he comes by. I hadn't talked to him in about a year. So he comes by the house by coincidence. And he says, well, what's going on? Anything new? And I says, you wouldn't believe it. He says, well, try me. And so I told him, a little bit of what's happening with the physics stuff, And then he says, oh, the same thing happened to me.
What?
And I said, what?
What?
What? He said, the same thing happened to me. This guy is from Argentina. He's in his mid-30s. And he started telling me on the way out, he told his wife to go in the car and his daughter to go in the car, right? Because that was he and his daughter that had come up to pick his wife. So this was all done in a 5-minute conversation. Wow. Basically, he told me that when he was 13 years old, he started to meditate. Initially out of body, he went and traveled into his neighbor's house, and he told his neighbor, he says, "Look, you have this lady. She looks like this. She's sleeping in your bed." And then the said, "No way! There's no way another woman is sleeping in my bed." And you described her. I don't know anyone like that, that lives, close to me, that I would allow in my bed, Anyway, he got a phone call that night at 1 in the morning. It was her sister that had a fight with her husband in another city that went and slept in her bed. Okay, and she got home that night like at 1 o'clock.
Wow.
That was his first out-of-body travel.
Wow.
Okay, he was 13 years old.
That's great.
Okay,
I love hearing stories like this. It's great.
Just like our friend here, by the 4th time, he went straight into the Matrix. Okay, there in the Matrix, he described them as very tall, Palladian-looking, blondes, Nordics, blue eyes. Then started giving him training in advanced sciences. Okay, he told me that he used to go to his classroom as a 13-year-old kid, put his finger right behind the kid in the chair, and then all of a sudden the kid's head would be almost on fire because he created so much energy by pointing his finger.
Wow.
He would get kittens. He would put them to sleep by touching them. Then he would rub them again. They would wake up. Okay. He told me those stories. Okay. So anyway, his mother was schizophrenic. And so he was afraid that he was becoming schizophrenic because he told me sometimes he would come down, he said, with like 25 pages of advanced physics.
My goodness.
He didn't know what the hell it was. Okay. But it was in his handwriting. Okay. So after like a year and a half of this training, he just told these ETs. And again, he was very tall, Nordic, looking entities. It was 3 of them. That look, my mother's schizophrenic. I don't want to be like my mother. I want you guys to go away. Don't come back. I want to lead a normal life. Okay. And so he finished telling the entirety of that story in his house the next day. Okay. I bought a 12-pack of beer and I went over his house.
As you do.
No, it's true. I swear to God. And so I had like 5 or 6 of them. He only had like 1, because the whole time he was telling me that shit, and you know what happened? I quit drinking after that. I quit drinking because what he did was that he verified the story of my friend. Validated the story of my friend. Because here's a guy that went through the same exact, story almost. And he came back with super advanced physics, And he didn't know anything of his friend, of this other guy. Nothing. I never told him about it, Never told him about it. So again, another coincidence, 2 people the same exact way. And it just so happened when I was having a nervous breakdown, getting drunk every day, that I always said that God's, sent me this guy, to put me back in course, Look, hope hope that I die. I'm telling you the honest truth. It's like nobody believes these
Mm.
stories.
You've got a very
Because
adventurous and I'll say a life that's full of intrigue and mystery. It's just fantastic. Loving it.
let me let me tell you another one.
That brings us to the end of part 1 of this 2-part series on F.R.E.E., the foundation for research into extraterrestrial encounters with Rey Hernandez. Please join us in the next episode of Super Woo Radio for part 2 of this most excellent, intriguing and informative conversation. Be well and be your authentic self.